the sixth and the ninth commandments. And these commandments are about love and purity. And now in the fourth commandment, we covered the duties of parents, and we also saw that God is our Father. And in the fifth commandment, we covered that our existence, that life, the meaning of life, the value of life. And the sixth commandment is sort of draws on both of those, because the sixth commandment is about love, and of course it evolves into the love that a father and a mother have for each other, and then in the creation of children. And that's what the sixth commandment deals with. The ninth commandment, again, is the same as the sixth, but it deals with the mental aspect of it, mental sin, where sixth commandment is the physical aspect. So, again, it deals with the power that God gives human beings. And you have to understand that it is a power. It's a power that God gives human beings that he didn't give the angels. Angels cannot create another living, immortal being. They can't produce another living, immortal being. Only human beings can do that. The number of angels that exist are the same number that God created in the very beginning. They're no more, no less. They don't die. They don't reproduce. Only human beings create other immortal beings. So, and God put it in human beings because of this, and because of the creative nature that he was giving to us, the power that he was giving to us. He put in human beings an attraction between males and females that would ultimately result in a new life. And so that attraction, God insists that the creation of that new life is the result of love. I'll get more into this in a minute, but God's created us because he loved us. And he insists that when we help, again, it comes from him, all creation comes from him. When we partake of this power with him, it also is out of love. Not out of pleasure, not out of anything else. It's because of love. And that's why he made a sacrament to surround it, to magnify it, to glorify it, to purify it, so that there would never be any question about it. This that's just the fact that he made a sacrament shows the sacred character of this love. Again, and this love is all love is a reflection of God. Now, Father took half of the religion lesson this morning in the sermon. You know, that was all about loving God. Well, it's exactly the same thing. In St. Paul put it in First Corinthians put it very well, what God is, that God is charity. And charity is a much better word, as Father said, than love. Because we, especially in the English language, break down the word love to mean dozens of different things, that it really doesn't. The Greeks have 4 different words for love. We have one word, and it encompasses all kinds of things that really shouldn't. Charity is a much more specific word and much better to use, because, as Father said, real love, true love, love that the love that God has for us and the love that we should have for each other is charity. This is based on what love, as he quoted St. Thomas, love is you want good for the one that you love. Who, our Lord says, what father, when a child asks him for bread, gives him a snake, something that would bite him? When you love someone, you want to give them good things. You want them to live and exist and continue living and existing. You want them to be happy. Love is selfless. Unfortunately, in this pagan world that we have here, the love that world espouses is selfish. Therefore, it is not love. Love is selfless. It gives of itself. It wants the one that it loves to have everything, and it keeps nothing back. So the sixth commandment deals with love and purity. Purity is the guard, the absolute guard that must be kept over the powers and functions that are intimately connected with co-creation by a father and a mother. Purity is its safeguard. Without the purity, it degenerates into something else, something that it isn't, something that it shouldn't be. It becomes a desecration. And again, this power that God gave human beings is so sacred that the desecration of it is just like the desecration of a chalice or a church, because you are a temple of God. And also the second problem with this desecration is it's a corruption of love. Love, and again, I'll get to that in a second. If it degenerates into the kind of love that the pagan world is looking at, it becomes a very vicious circle that causes impurity. Impurity causes this selfishness, and this selfishness causes more impurity, which causes more selfishness, which causes more impurity. It becomes a huge vicious circle. So you have to be careful that you don't let love degenerate in that way. And purity itself is the guard that's kept against that. As long as you hold on to purity, you won't have that problem. So, what's the problem? Well, you are created as a human being. You have two parts, a body and a soul. And so there are two sorts of love. And again, I use the word loosely. There's what is called human love, or animal love, or really it's just animal attraction. And there's a spiritual love, which is the real love. Animal attraction you see everywhere. If you live on a farm, you see it on a daily basis. Animal attraction is that attraction between a male and a female that ends up in producing children, or more of a species. It's and in the world of the body and the soul, the body usually has supremacy over the soul because of concupiscence. The body has a extra advantage because we tend to love our bodies more than our souls. Again, it's easier to be bad than to be good. We have an inclination, a leaning in that direction for everything for ourselves, for what we want, for selfishness. So God puts this attraction or instinct in animals so that they will reproduce, and the earth there'll be more of them. They won't become extinct. But it's not love. When a dog gets together with another dog, there's no love involved in that. It's just an instinct, an attraction. the and the dog will move on to another dog and to another dog, and when they have if they have puppies, the mother may take care of them for a while because again it's an instinct to protect your young. But when they reach a couple weeks old or a month or two old, she's no longer interested, she moves on. This isn't love. This is an animal attraction. And so, if you look out in the pagan world, you will see human beings acting the same way. They won't move from one partner to another partner. They stay with them as long as their egos or their selfish nature is satisfied, and then they move on to someone else. And they're not interested in children. They're not interested in raising those children or staying with the partner or protecting their partner or being good or seeing that their partner has whatever they need. They're living like animals. And they're behaving like animals. And the world out there, the pagan world out there, this is what you see in movies and books and television and the internet. This is what it's promoting. This is not love. Again, real love has to have a spiritual attachment. That you want what is good for that person. That you love them, you love them and you so profoundly that you can't imagine living your life without them. You want them forever. That's why matrimony is a permanent thing. Till death do us part thing. So, the love between a man and a woman, where the soul and not just the body is involved, becomes a desire, makes the desire for happiness for each other selfish and not selfless. So you'll know if the soul is involved, if the love that you have for the other person is selfless. Now, there are a lot of guys, and this mostly works on the guy's side, but there are girls too that do, that, you know, young girls grew up on with this whole idea of romance. So when the guy says to the girl, "I love you," she believes him. She's a fool, but she believes him. Because a guy, one of the first things he learns is if you tell a girl you love her, you know, you're halfway there. So, and guys will use that. I can't tell you what the boarding girls that I had in New York, the number of times that I had a girl, you know, a junior or a senior who go home. I remember a junior particularly because she went home for the summer, got a summer job at McDonald's, and you know, she met this guy who drove the UPS truck and made the deliveries, and you know, he told her that he loved her, and now she's all brokenhearted because she's back at school and he never writes to her, and yes, she doesn't. I said, he didn't love you to begin with. He just wanted something from you, and he knew that saying "I love you" would get it. He's selfish. But guys will tell a girl, you know, well, okay, he says he loves her, she says she loves him, and the next thing he says is, "Prove it." If he says that, he's being selfish, and you should break it off right then and there. Because if a guy is asking you to commit sin, what kind of love is this? Love is selfless. He wants something from you that he shouldn't have. So again, the virtue of purity is the guard, and you have to hold on to it. Only when that love is selfless, and you pledge to your that you pledge each other that love in the sacrament of matrimony, can you be sure that this is that he really loves you, and that can he be sure that you really love him? If he wants you to prove it, say, okay, give me the ring, we'll walk down the aisle, and that's proof. Otherwise, he's not acting any differently than a dog or a horse or an alley cat. And the same with the girl. All right, so the video died, the camera died, and so I'm going to try and start where I left off. You lost everything that I said to the actual class, but hopefully I'll remember most of it. Anyway, we're talking about impurity. Love, purity, and in this case, impurity. And how impurity is a vicious circle. It causes you to... Impurity causes selfishness, and selfishness causes impurity, more impurity, and more impurity causes more selfishness. And once you get into that circle, it destroys your spiritual life. And if a country falls into this vicious circle, like you see in the United States now and in other countries in the world, not all of them, but in many countries in the world, you see them living in this way. There is without spiritual love. I mean, the true love. They live just following their own emotions, their own desires, what it is that they want. And when this happens, it destroys not just the persons, but it destroys the whole civilization. And again, you have to... History repeats itself. Learn from the past. This has happened before. Look at Rome. And Rome was not the first civilization. It happened in Egypt. It happened in other places. You begin thinking only of yourself, and this destroys you as a person. It destroys your spiritual life. It makes you totally useless for real love. When real love comes along, you won't recognize it. And you'll treat it in the same selfish way that you've treated it in the past. And you will lose a great deal. No one will really love you because you've become unlovable. You're too selfish, too caught up in yourself. Yes, there are other people out there like you, and you can get together with them for a while until you both move on to someone else. So it destroys the possibilities of any true human love. And because we're incapable of real love, the spiritual type. And we begin to live just like our animal counterparts. So the sixth commandment forbids all external actions opposed to purity. Sixth commandment forbids all external actions, the actions part. The ninth commandment forbids all willful thoughts and desires opposed to purity. So ninth commandment is what you think, what you desire. The sixth commandment is when you put it into practice. You begin with the ninth commandment, and you will move to the sixth commandment. You don't ever arrive at the sixth commandment immediately. You get there through the ninth commandment. You break the ninth commandment first, then you break the sixth. So, sins against purity include any willful or impure thought, desire, or deed. Thought or desire, ninth commandment. Deed, sixth commandment. Any willful. Remember, you cannot accidentally commit a mortal sin. You have to will it. So any willful thought, desire, or deed. Every fully deliberate and willful sin against purity is a mortal sin. Automatic mortal sin. But it has to be willful. It has to be deliberate. Impure conversations and the singing of immodest songs are mortal sins when they are of such a nature that they excite you strongly for sexual passions. They strongly incite those passions. Now, I've had boarders. I know the music out there. I've had boarders. When the girls come to the boarding house, they bring CDs. They're not allowed to play them. They have to give them to me, and I have to play them and tell them you can't listen to this CD or you can listen to it. I have veto rights on all music played in the house. So sometimes I'll listen to it and I'll say, why do you like that song? That's outrageous. Well, I don't listen to the words. I just like the beat. Then get instrumental music. Because the words, you may not be listening to the words, but the words go into your head anyway. And the words, once they're in your head, you can't get them out. Whether you are paying attention to it or not, they're there. And you will recall them. Your brain is a very special organ, and it will recall it. Usually it's sometime when you don't intend to. So why listen to a song? Yeah, if you like the beat, get something without the words. So we can sin venially against purity through lack of attention or reflection, or through negligence or slowness in rejecting the impure thoughts, or by giving partial consent. What does this mean? Well, maybe you're in with a group of kids and you're watching a movie and all of a sudden there's some kind of impure thing going on in the movie or on the screen, but you're too busy getting the popcorn or talking to somebody else next to you, and you're not really paying attention to what's going on there. Yes, you kind of know what's going on, but you're not giving it your full attention. Or you're too busy, you're trying to think of something else. You're thinking of what you're going to be doing after the movie's over, and your attention is not on what's happening. In that case, you're not giving it your full attention, so it's not a mortal sin. It's probably a venial sin. Or slowness in rejecting the temptation. I mean, it pops into your head and you think about it for a little bit and say, oh, no, that's wrong. I guess I better not do that. It would really be nice to do that, but no, I better, I'm not. And you put it away. But for a little while there, you kind of enjoyed the thoughts of it. So you didn't push it away right away. Yeah, it's venial and it could even be mortal. So you have to be careful. So how do you preserve your innocence? Because purity is innocence. How do you preserve this purity, this innocence? First of all, you have to avoid occasions of sin. And I'll go through all those occasions of sin in a moment. So you need to avoid occasions of sin. All right, let's go over them. What are they? Well, one of the major ones is curiosity. You want to know. That was Eve's problem. She wanted to know. And the devil was happy to oblige her. When she did know, she was a different person. And that's the problem with knowledge. Once you lose your innocence, you cannot get it back. It's gone. There's a Greek story about Pandora, curiosity, opening the box and letting all the evils loose in the world. Once you open the box, you couldn't get them all back. She couldn't get them back. That's the problem with curiosity. You want to know things. Sometimes you might need to know something. Then who do you ask? Where do you go to get the information? You go to the internet. For things involving purity, or impurity, you do not go to the internet. You don't go to try to find it in books or in magazines or movies or whatever, and you don't go to your best friend. Your best friend may say that they know something, but guaranteed they're the same age as you are. They don't have the information, or the information they have is twisted or partial or fake, totally false. Where do you go for the information? There's the source you go to if you need to know something is your parents. They will tell you the truth. They will tell you as much as you need to know at whatever age you are. And they will tell you in a way that will safeguard your purity. Another source that you can go to would be your confessor. If you want to know if such and such is a sin, or, but for most of the information, you need to go to your parents. No one else. Just your parents. And if you don't have parents, you go to whoever your guardian is, or your godparents. The reason you have godparents, they're supposed to be looking after your spiritual life. Go to your godparents. If you can't go to your parents, go to your godparents. Or your grandparents. A family member who loves you, who's out for your good. They have a spiritual love for you. That means they're out for your good. So, other occasions of sin besides curiosity. And most temptations to sin come through the eyes. Sometimes through hearing, like bad songs, but mostly through the eyes, what you see. You're curious about a book. You're curious about a movie. You heard so much about it, but it has a couple bad scenes in it. Well, but you want to know. You want to see what's going on with it. You want to read this book, but it's not a good book. All right. Second, bad companions and conversations. What people talk about. Some of the things they talk about aren't good things. Some of your friends may not be good friends, and they're not out for your betterment. Immoral books, magazines, newspapers, pictures, and movies. Indecent shows, dancing, and dress. We'll get more specific about some of those things. Next week we'll talk about modesty. And modesty is more than just dress. Too free companionship with the other persons of the other sex. Boys hanging around girls all the time, and especially certain types of girls. Girls hanging constantly around boys. You often refer to them as flirts. Either the boy or the girl, they're flirting. They're trying to get the attention. Some of the attention they're going to get is not going to be good attention. Intemperance and idleness. Intemperance because drinking often leads to impurity. Because drinking, you lose control. It lowers your defenses. It allows you to act in a way, and that's not just drinking, but also drugs or anything like that, it removes your inhibitions. Those you will do things under the influence that you wouldn't normally do. And idleness, because when you're bored, you tend to think about or do things that you don't normally do because you are bored. And one of the best ways to, if you're tempted to get rid of a temptation, is to do some work. Especially the harder the work, the better. Because it puts your mind on something else. It puts your hands to work doing something else. Your mind has to focus on something else. All right, so how do you preserve innocence? First of all, you avoid the occasions of sin. You choose only good companions. You're careful to guard your sight and your other senses, because remember, those become occasions of sin. You have a tender devotion to the Blessed Virgin, and ask her daily to preserve your innocence. Frequently receive the sacraments. A person who receives the sacraments regularly will have a strong defense of grace to help them. They can call upon it when they're tempted. They'll have a bulwark to put between themselves and sin. People who do not receive the sacraments regularly will be weak. Often call to mind that God sees us. Sometimes, because remember, these sins, sometimes we do them in private. We take the dirty magazine and read it where Mom won't watch us looking at it. You must remember that even though your mom's not seeing you, God does. God knows. God's watching you. So if you do anything of an impure nature, God is seeing you. You're never alone. And often practice penance and self-denial. And in the class today, I told them, we're entering Lent. Wednesday is Ash Wednesday. And by the way, Tuesday down here is, a big deal. Tuesday down here is Mardi Gras, also known as Fat Tuesday. But in the rest of the church, it's known as Shrove Tuesday. Shrove means to go to confession, to be shrived of your sins. People went to confession on Shrove Tuesday so that they would be ready on Ash Wednesday to begin a good Lent. Self-denial. Tuesday is also the Feast of the Holy Face. And the Pope put it on Shrove Tuesday to make up for the sins of Carnival, Mardi Gras. There are so many sins committed during Mardi Gras. It's the whole idea of Mardi Gras is to commit sins. Why? Because tomorrow we have to be good. Today we can eat is almost the whole idea. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Eat, drink, and be merry because tomorrow we have to do penance. That's the pagan concept. That's not the Catholic concept. That's a pagan concept. Today we party because tomorrow we have to be good. Lent does ask you is a time of self-denial. It's a time of penance. You should be doing something for God in the way of self-denial, besides the fasting and the abstaining, which are obligatory. You should be doing some kind of penance for Lent. That's the negative aspect of it. you give up something. When we were kids, we gave up candy. My mother would not let us have any sweets except on Sundays during Lent. And we couldn't have, and unfortunately for my sister, whose birthday always fell during Lent, we would always have to celebrate it on a Sunday. But you couldn't have any candy during Lent, and you couldn't watch any television except on Sundays during Lent. Everything was lifted on Sundays, just like the fast is lifted on Sundays. Whatever you gave up during Lent, you could do on Sundays. But those were mandatory as far as we were in our household. But you were expected to do something else on your own. Though we always thought, hey, not having TV and not having candy, shouldn't that be enough? But my mother's answer was, well, I have to fast, and that's not going to be enough, so, why should you be any different? So anyway, but that's the negative aspect of Lent. You should be doing something negative and something positive. Your Catholic life should always be balanced. When you work on a vice to get rid of it, you should be trying to enhance the virtue. If you're going to practice self-denial in Lent, give up something, you should also be doing something. Doing what? Doing something good. The corporal or spiritual works of mercy, or something else that will enhance your spiritual life. So you're going to give up candy, or you're going to give up whatever during Lent. You should at the same time do something for your spiritual life. Maybe read 15 minutes, decide I'm going to give this up, but I'm going to read 15 minutes a day spiritual reading. Or I'm going to, once a week, on Saturday, go visit the neighbor down the street who's sick and would like, who's old and lonely. Or I'm going to say an extra decade of the Rosary every day. Or I'm going to try and be patient with my little sister. Or I'm going to do all of my chores or all of my homework, whichever, in your case, when I'm supposed to do it. And mom and dad is not going to have to come after me and say, have you done your homework? And if they do, I'm going to be able to say yes. Because I'm going to have my chores done right away. Mom won't have to nag me. Or I'm going to have my homework done right away. Mom won't have to nag me. I'm sure you can find something you can do that will help you, build you up spiritually. And again, doing those things are also, in ways, penances. You're giving up time to go visit the neighbor down the street. Who wants to do their homework or their chores? Yeah, you'd rather wait till the last minute, but it's a penance to do it now, so you're going to do it now. But those, or just, that's 15 minutes spiritual reading, or saying a decade of the Rosary, is time that you could be doing something else that you enjoy more. But you want to make a good Lent, you add something and you take something away. You make your spiritual life balanced. So, temptations. First of all, remember, temptation is not a sin. Doesn't matter how many temptations you have, they don't add up to a sin. Temptation is just that, a tempting. It's not a sin. If a thought or a desire is recognized as impure and rejected, you rejected it. You didn't give in to it. It can only strengthen you spiritually. And therefore, there is no sin involved. And certainly no mortal sin. Remember, to be mortal, you have to willingly consent to it. Laziness or negligence in rejecting that thought, that bad thought, or that desire, you don't put it promptly from your mind, may involve a venial sin, but certainly not a mortal sin. Yeah, you didn't put it away right away, so you let it hang. You kind of turned it around in your mind and looked at it a little bit before you shoved it out the door. That would be a venial sin, but not mortal. You didn't embrace it. You didn't hold on to it. You didn't willingly, knowingly, fully consent to it. Fully consent. You have to give full consent. Not partial consent, full consent. A lack of knowledge, a lack of reflection or attention can lessen it and make it a venial sin instead of a mortal sin. Yeah, like I say, you're watching the movie with your friends, and yeah, it's if you were really paying attention to what's going on the screen, it would probably be a mortal sin, but your mind is on the conversation that's going on over here or something else. You know, you just spilled the popcorn or you're cleaning yourself up because somebody spilled a drink on you, whatever. You're not paying attention. Your mind is not focused on that. So it's not a mortal sin, probably venial sin, because you are getting something from it. No one is responsible. And also, even if you're half awake or half asleep and something's going on, again, you're not fully consenting to it. No one is responsible to what happens when they're asleep. If you dream about something, it won't be a mortal sin. It could be a venial sin because before you went to bed, you were looking at something bad that gave you those bad dreams. But in your dreams, you didn't fully consent to it. Because in dreams, you cannot consent or not consent. It just happens. To consent deliberately or to do nothing about rejecting a thought that you recognize as unchaste is a mortal sin. That is when it is a mortal sin. In those two conditions. When you give full consent to it and you do nothing to reject the thought. The length of temptation does not indicate consent. Doesn't matter how long it lasts. You get something keeps popping into your mind, something that you saw or you heard, and it keeps coming back into your mind, and you just keep pushing it out, and you push it out, and it comes back, and you push it out, and then finally think you've got rid of it, and you're working, and then it comes back again. The length of temptation does not mean that you're consenting to it. God is strengthening you against it. As long as you're pushing out, you become stronger every single time. God allows that because it makes you stronger every single time. Just think about it as the devil beating his head against the wall. Every time he tries, you're pushing it back. He's banging his head. He's not getting anything out of it. So impurity, as St. Paul says, is a sin against our own bodies. That pleasure that we give into with impurity is destroying us. It's a degradation of the sacred and the sublime, of that function that God gave us, and intends to use in only a specific way and at a specific time, under the sacrament of matrimony, with someone that we love. God is particularly firm regarding the laws against impurity. He punishes them severely. We know this from the Old Testament, and we also know it from history. Hey, Sodom and Gomorrah were totally wiped out. There's a huge hole in the ground where they used to be. It's called the Dead Sea, which nothing can live in. That's why it's called the Dead Sea. So impurity leads you away from your faith. If by embracing impurity, you will lose your faith. Guaranteed. And you will lose the right to go to heaven. You will start down a road that will be almost impossible to come back from. Impurity will change you in such a way, it will corrupt you in such a way that you can't. It's so hard to change. It will ruin you for any love that could ever come in your way. Because when that love comes, you won't recognize it because you're so selfish. You're so impure. You won't recognize a beautiful thing. Remember, you judge others by yourself. If you're impure, you think other people are impure. You think they have motives that they don't have. Purity is the guardian of all that is best and finest in human nature. So you need to hold on to it. It's also the guardian of the home. A home won't be a happy home if there's no purity in it. Impurity will ruin a home life. It will destroy it. Because impurity leads to true love and happiness. And that's what you want in a home. True love and happiness and permanency in marriage. All of those are the fruits of purity. True love, happiness, and permanency in marriage. A marriage that will be permanent, that will last forever, that won't end up in the divorce court. Purity safeguards the home. Those are the fruits of purity. Purity is the price that you have to pay to preserve your faith and to get to heaven, to receive eternal life. You have to pay the price of purity, living a pure life in your state, whatever state you're in, child, single, religious, married. There's a purity for each of them. Whatever purity is required for that state in life, that's what you have to live. That's how you will get to heaven. That's how you will hold on to your eternal salvation and your faith. Giving in to impurity, you will lose both. All right, so next week is modesty. And then I think after that we'll finish the 10 Commandments, and we will probably go into the sacraments. But I will probably start with marriage because it seems since we've just finished the 6th and the 9th Commandments and we're going over the modesty, it's probably would be best just to continue in the same vein and go over some of the other aspects of this commandment and how they pertain specifically to the married state. So next week, modesty, and then we'll see. I'm not guaranteeing anything.